What's up, YouTube fragrance family? Tommy with Studio Sense here with another video about, you guessed it, fragrance. Today I'm going to be talking to you about my top 10 new releases out of 2021. The year is finally kind of sort of wrapping up. I did want to wait till Dracar Noir Intense came out, but who knows when that's actually going to hit the shelves. So I wanted to go ahead and kind of close the door on the best new releases of 2021 Designer Edition. At first we didn't think 2021 was going to be that good of a year. Now looking back on it, it was actually quite a good year. So when we come back, we're going to talk about the 10 fragrances as the best new releases of 2021. That and more is coming up, so stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. I'm really happy that you stopped by to check out my list of best new releases of 2021. Now, this is a top 10 list, so we're going to start with number 10. Coming in at number 10 is a fragrance from the house of Yves Saint Laurent. It is a part of a family of well-received fragrances in the date night arena. It is La Nuit de l'Homme Bleu Electrique. Wonderful little fragrance, and it definitely deserves a higher spot. I'm probably going to say that about all these fragrances, so bear with me. If you've ever smelled La Nuit de l'Homme, then you know it has that signature cardamom, that nutty warmth, that seductive quality about it. The best way to describe this fragrance is if you took the La Nuit de l'Homme DNA and made a blue fragrance out of it, Bleu Electrique is what you would end up with. It is an epic scent. It's a slightly sweet fragrance. It's extremely versatile. It does have that seductive quality that the original La Nuit de l'Homme has, only it's a little bit more modernized. So it's got a nice modern spin to it. You can wear it even in cooler weather, and that's why it made this list, and again, probably deserves a higher spot. La Nuit de l'Homme Bleu Electrique. Coming in at my number 9 fragrance of best new releases of 2021 is a scent from the house of Azzaro. It is Azzaro The Most Wanted. Now, when this was first released, a lot of people were wondering if it would be better than Wanted by Night, which is an epic date night scent for men. It's not quite there, but it has a lot of qualities on its own. It stands to be an fantastic gourmand scent. Now, I've gotten a ton of compliments from wearing this fragrance, so if you're looking for a head turner, a compliment puller, this is your guy. This fragrance is a fantastic combination of toffee, bourbon vanilla, and vetiver. It's a fantastic cold weather fragrance. As a gourmand fragrance, it's not overly sweet. It checks all the boxes, pings all the nodes. It's just one of those fragrances that you can wear for almost any occasion. So there's versatility built into it as well. Even as a gourmand fragrance, it carries that same wanted DNA forward, extremely accessible, and that's why it made this list of best new releases 2021, coming in at number 9. Pulling up the 8th spot in best new releases of 2021 is a fragrance that also comes from a long line of fragrances as a flanker. In fact, you'll notice that most of these have that in common. It is from Dolce & Gabbana, the one Luminous Night. Luminous Night is an exclusive edition. It takes the note of date, that thing that you didn't want to eat as a kid, probably don't want to eat as an adult, as a fragrant note. And fragrance, it makes it dark, rich, and adds a little bit of a texture to the scent that is extremely sexy. It's very sexy, very seductive. It's an excellent date night fragrance, if I can use that play on words a second time. It's just a warm, rich, magnetic scent, and that's why it takes my number 8 spot. Dolce & Gabbana's The One Luminous Night. If I told you this next fragrance had apple, ginger, lavender, tonka bean, and it was slightly aldehydic and dry, but extremely versatile, probably the most hyper-versatile fragrance in this list, you probably know what I'm talking about. It is from the house of Yves Saint Laurent, and our number 7 fragrance in this list of best new releases is Ooyy Le Parfum. Yes, this one is the most hyper-versatile fragrance in this list. This one did have a higher position, but I did feel that some of the other fragrances in this list were a bit more creative. What YSL did for this fragrance is they really did right by it. It, to me, is the best evolution of a scent in a line of flankers, and to me represents the best of the Y line. Even with a little bit of sweetness, but a little bit more mature, a little darker. It seems to be navigating its way to a lot of people's lapels and jackets and necks and pulse points in a way that would suggest that it is not only the most hyper versatile fragrance, it's a great nighttime wear if you've never tried it, and the evening time as a standalone date night fragrance, it works perfect for that. And that's why it's coming in as number 7 of best new releases out of 2021. All right, we are rapidly moving down through our fragrances, getting closer and closer to our top 5. Coming in at number 6 is a fragrance from the house of Paco Rabanne. Now, Paco Rabanne's been a busy house this year. They've done quite a few interesting and creative things. The fragrance I'm referring to is Invictus Victory. That's right, the trophy looking fragrance. Some people think it's kind of cheesy, but I really like it. V for Victory. Invictus has that victory title kind of built into it. And this particular fragrance has that Invictus DNA built into it as well, but it's a little bit more on the, it's less edgy and more mature. So this is a cold weather fragrance. I was really happy to see Invictus being made into a cold weather fragrance. It's not just a translation or a port, as it were, of Invictus to cooler weather. It's a redesign, and they've done a really good job with that pink pepper, frankincense, lavender, and tonka bean combination, topped off, or rounded out, I should say, with vanilla and amber. Really long lasting. It's actually what I would term a banger. I get a good 8 to 9 hours out of this, and I always smell it on myself when I'm wearing it throughout my day. And that initial sweetness that you smell when you first spray it on, if you're not into sweet fragrances, that actually dies down relatively quickly, and this has an epic dry down. And that's why V for Victory, Invictus Victory, is made my number 6 spot of Best New Releases 2021. Coming in at my number 5 is a fragrance that I actually haven't reviewed on my channel yet. I did a first impressions when it first came out, but coming back to it and wearing it a lot more lately, I've come to realize this is probably the best that they've released in this line of fragrances, similar to a lot of these. It is from the house of Givenchy. It is Givenchy Gentleman Eau de Toilette Intense. This is such a great scent, and if you're familiar at all with their kind of iris-centric line of fragrances, iris is the note that's noteworthy in this fragrance, but what they've done a bit differently, and we would expect it to be bumped up quite a bit in an intense version, right? But what we didn't expect was the dry down that this would create. The dry down is a great combination of that cardamom, basil, iris, coumarin, and cedar. When you combine all that and fix it together in that base, the dry down of this is amazing. It's got a bit of gravitas and gravity to it that is similar to a lot of darker fragrances that have amber and vanilla in their base, which this one doesn't. But it does have that kind of vibe to it when it dries down, and that's what makes this a great scent, and that's why it's my number 5 pick of Best New Releases in 2021. Givenchy Gentleman Eau de Toilette Intense. All right, we only have 4 more to go. Coming in at my number 4 spot is a fragrance that's probably not going to be a surprise to anyone because it's such a great scent. It comes from a line of great scents. It is the epic Spicebomb Infrared. Somehow, you wouldn't expect this out of a red fragrance. You know, most red fragrances have red thyme, red this, red that, cinnamon, anything that's red. They're a little bit hot and spicy, and that's okay. This happens to actually be more versatile even than Spicebomb and Spicebomb Extreme. Don't know how they accomplished it, but it is extremely spicy. You've got chili peppers peppered throughout the fragrance. There's habanero on top of habanero, surrounded by a habanero wrap. But then you have that signature combination of amber wood and tobacco, and that's where I think this shines. Whatever the ratio that was used in this fragrance for balancing out the tobacco and amber wood and the spicy hot, they did such a good job because it ends up kind of balancing it out to the degree to where this particular fragrance, while you would think it's just cold weather only, right? Cold weather fragrance. It's actually a lot more versatile than that. And that versatility is what led me to choosing it as my number 4 pick out of Best New Releases of 2021. Spicebomb Infrared by Viktor & Rolf. All right, we are down to my top 3 fragrances, Best New Releases of 2021. This next fragrance coming in at number 3 is from a line of fragrances that are all to a T excellent gourmand fragrances. Gourmand scents for men are kind of hard to do, but I honestly think Emporio Armani has done probably the best job in creating one of the best gourmand fragrances for men. It takes my number 3 spot, Stronger With You, Absolutely. Absolutely has this kind of sound of finality to it, and I agree. This is a great resting place for the Stronger With You DNA. But they kind of went back to basics because it's got that whole rum, slightly boozy going on. You've got the glazed chestnuts that are back, but then you still have that same dark richness threaded throughout the fragrance that runs through it, and that's really what creates this as a banger. This one lasts me a good 10, 11, 12 hours. And again, it's one of those you smell on yourself constantly if you're a busy person and you catch your own sillage. I think it's pretty much evolved beyond its predecessors and pretty much better in every way. And if you're looking for one of these to purchase, I would say just go straight to Stronger With You, Absolutely. Coming in at my number 3 spot. All right, we are down to my number 2 fragrance of Best New Release of 2021. This may come as a surprise to some, not as a surprise to most of you who've watched my channel. It is from the house of Christian Dior. It is Dior Sauvage Elixir. For whatever reason, Sauvage, the name Sauvage, the IP, the idea of it, The fragrance itself galvanizes a lot of people. People are either love it or they hate it. But regardless of how you feel about Sauvage as a fragrance and about Sauvage Elixir, there's no denying the quality of this fragrance. Performs amazingly. It's got this sentient darkness about it that is at once lavender and at once licorice-like and very pine-oriented. You know, it's almost like the sap of a pine tree at times, and then when it dries down, you get a hint of what the original Sauvage was like a little bit with that DNA in there. But to me, this doesn't feel like a flanker. It feels like its own pillar or flagship fragrance. It's not, but that's kind of how I view it because it's such a standalone scent that I don't think of Sauvage when I wear this. I think of something altogether different and new. And that's what it's like, and that's really what led me to choosing it as my number 2 pick for Best New Releases 2021. But guys, we are down to my number 1 pick for Best New Release of 2021, and it's really strange how I was introduced to this fragrance. So I was just looking at Facebook one day, as a lot of you guys may do, just kind of trolling through it for what's interesting in the forums there, and I came across a photo, and this was the photo that I saw. And I was like, oh, okay, Jeremy's busted a bottle of Eros? The Eros Parfum? What? I never even heard that this was coming out. There was no advertisement. It was one of those odd stealth releases that when it finally did come out, there was, again, no announcement. I myself, being a fan of Versace Eros, I went out, I picked it up, brought it home, busted it out, tried it, and was very pleased to see that they're following in that legacy, that long lineage of Versace fragrances, starting with the original, going to the Eau de Parfum, and now with the Parfum version, that is very similar. What I really, really like about this fragrance, and what led me to choose this as the best new release of 2021, is they've taken that very familiar DNA and they've turned it into a cold weather fragrance. And cold weather fragrances are my jam. They just happen to be my favorite genre of fragrances just because there's so many things that you can do with darker, denser, richer, deeper notes. There's lots of creative things that you can do with the fragrance. Now, they couldn't get super creative with the Eros DNA because you got to stick by something that's tried and true, and Versace Eros is one of their best-selling fragrances, if not the best-selling fragrance for Versace. So it does smell very much like Eros, but the combination of these notes, which are typically found in cool weather fragrances, you've got black pepper, elemi resins, cashmere, you've got vanilla, but not just a bit of vanilla. This guy right here is beefed up to the degree that when everything that is Versace Eros dries off, in the open and in the mid, what you're left with in the dry down is this incredibly intuitive combination of cashmere, which is like a softly textured dry down, and vanilla. This is such a wonderfully vanillic base. It's not really a linear vanilla. This particular vanilla has kind of an IQ about it. Of course, what we're talking about is higher concentration of oils in Versace Eros Parfum. Well, some of you guys may have been surprised at my list, and some of you may have expected what I've chosen, but I'm interested in knowing what you think of your favorite new releases in 2021, and let me know what those are in the comments below. Now, I know we had a ton of new releases this year, and I didn't touch on a lot of them. However, stay tuned for tomorrow because I'm going to do a best-in-class kind of list for a lot of the new releases that I feel need to be mentioned. And that's mainly why I didn't have any honorable mentions today, is because of tomorrow's video. So make sure, if you haven't, to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and tune in for tomorrow's video as well. Thanks so much for stopping by and checking out today's video and list. And as always, thank you so much for your support on my channel. I'm Tommy with Studio Sense, and I'll see you tomorrow.